Does Nick Caserio have a plan, or could he be on the verge of looking really weird? Plus, speaking of weird, what in the heck are the Tennessee Titans doing? Let's go inside the locker room upon March Madness in more ways than one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk.
All right, let's take a break from this March Madness real quick to touch on some stuff going on in the NFL. It is the locker room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central, Sports Radio 610 and the Odyssey app. Also see me right here on YouTube. I want to get into this Nick Caserio thing as well as the Tennessee Titans, man. I know this is the type of excitement that a lot of fans crave, but this is also what makes organizations laughing stocks. We'll get into that, but let's keep our eyes on our own paper for a second. I'm hearing a lot of dialogue. I heard it yesterday on Texans radio with Mark Vandermeer and John Harris. The talk about the Texans potentially trading back in to round one. And my thing about that is, would that make the Texans potentially look silly if they do that? In other words, the Texans, they traded with the Minnesota Vikings. They traded their first. They got a second this year, 19 spots back. They got a second next year. And then they had a pick swap in 6th or 7th round. So if the Texans decide to trade up and trade back into the first round, what's the cost going to be? I mean, surely they're not giving up 2 seconds, right? Because if you're giving up 2 seconds, then you kind of just basically risked losing your guy at 23 for a late round pick swap. Now, if you trade a second and a third, then that basically means that you did a third and second round pick swap next year. It's confusing, but that's what we're going to have to do if they decide to trade into the first round. I mean, that's the type of thinking that we'll have to do. So while there's a lot of intriguing players, if the Texans like a player enough to trade in, could they potentially look silly for trading their pick in the first place? It might. There's people who didn't understand it from the beginning. But if they do, and I would rather them just stay put and get guys they want. If they want to trade up in the second and figure something out, maybe. But trading into the first round to get a player that you could have just got at your original pick, and depending on what the cost would be, just seems a little bit strange. Let's hear Nick Caserio trying to explain the draft trade, and maybe this will bring some clarity to the confusion that I've just created.
We received a few calls about that pick. We looked at the information, and D'Amico and I, and again, we talk about everything, so no decisions are made in a vacuum. So based on the discussions that we had, and then based on the discussions that we had with Minnesota, when that opportunity was presented, we felt it made sense for us. So some of this is really just about positioning pools of players or clusters of players. So probably anywhere from 25 to 40, you're going to probably have a very similar type of player. Would we have players that we feel comfortable with? Probably the answer is yes. But by the same token, if we were to move out of that, what's the opportunity cost of moving out of that pick? Moving back 19 spots or whatever it is to the top of the second round there in the 40s. When you go back specifically to, let's call it that area, over the last few years, guys like Petrie, Maffei, Brisker, even last year, Laporta, Mayer, Bergeron, Musgrave, Branch, Jaden Reed. So I would say you look at those football players who have really made a significant impact on their football team. But if we happen to stay at 42, we're hopeful that we're going to be able to find a good football player or two that can help our football team. So when you take all the information on face value, in the end, we felt comfortable with the decision that we were making. Does it maybe potentially eliminate a certain pool of players? Potentially, but it doesn't mean we can't come back into the first round. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be good players available to pick. The discussions that D'Amico and I had throughout the course of the week and specific to this situation, we both felt comfortable. And so in the end, we made a decision that we felt made the most sense for us, and we'll kind of keep moving forward.
And I can make a lot more sense of that if they stay put or if they wait till day two to be attractive. But if we start talking about trading year two, and God forbid you trade another two, you basically did all of this for nothing. But when we start talking about that, you just wonder, should they have stayed put? Obviously, we got some cabin fever. We're kind of at the downtime of the offseason. But the more I hear this dialogue, the more I say, okay, you just heard him say you get the same caliber player between 25 and 40. So I'm hoping the research is done and they've decided what they've decided, and they're not going to have to give up. Because if you're going to trade back up, like you traded back 19 spots, you got a second and you got the swap. You got 2 seconds and you got the swap. What are you going to have to do to get back in that area? Especially when time is money and there's desperation and there's a clock ticking and all that type of stuff. It might be more. I don't know. Little paranoia, but who knows? Also with the Texans, do they have a plan at corner? Are they just going to sign every corner from the COVID draft, the 2020 draft? They've already signed Jeff Okudah. Now they sign another top 10 guy, CJ Henderson. Is this the plan at corner? Are these two guys competing to replace Steven Nelson? Are these just depth signings? I don't know. But you look at the corner opposite of Derek Stingley right now. These guys are on their third teams for a reason, respectfully, Jeff Okudah and Henderson. So do the Texans see something that other teams haven't been able to see? Are they going to be able to revive them? Who knows? But it is an interesting strategy and an interesting way to approach it. What is the plan? Speaking of the plan, what in the hell are the Tennessee Titans doing? What are the Tennessee Titans doing? Now, the Tennessee Titans are either the smartest organization in the world, and they know what they're doing, or they are a perfect example of how not to run an organization. They fired Mike Vrabel, did so relatively early. They brought in a new coach. They paid Calvin Ridley the 6th highest paid wide receiver money in the league. And a lot of the fans on Titans Twitter, they seem to be happy because they screwed the Jags along the way. You might have bailed them out. And then you have the Kansas City Chiefs, L'Jarius Sneed, 18 penalties last year, made some big plays for the Chiefs. But L'Jarius Sneed, according to Adam Schefter, the Chiefs are expected to receive a 2025 third-round pick in addition to a 7th-round pick flop for L'Jarius Sneed. Now, if you're getting L'Jarius Sneed on his rookie contract at that, you got to feel good about it. But he's expected to be one of the highest paid cornerbacks in NFL history. So you've made Calvin Ridley the 6th highest paid receiver, and L'Jarius Sneed is now going to be one of the highest paid corners in NFL history. And you don't have a quarterback, and you just hired a coach that kind of had them overachieving and competing for a while. I don't know what the Titans are doing. Either they're smarter than everyone else, or this is going to be the laughing stock of the NFL for a long time. You can say it's all about the quarterback. I don't know how many people are buying Will Levis stock, but it is a rough look right now for the Tennessee Titans. And quite frankly, if you told me that I could be an undercover spy, and let's say the Texans could send someone to run the Tennessee Titans, but you can't be blatantly obvious that you're trying to screw them up, I would do exactly what they've done this offseason. I think it's been a disastrous offseason for the Tennessee Titans. I don't know what Amy Adams Stank is cooking up, but I think it's bad. Shout out to the fans in Tennessee for being excited. Much love to you. Again, I said this at the start of free agency. There's never been a fan base in the history of ever that hasn't gotten excited when their team has paid a free agent top money. It doesn't happen. But more times than not, the teams that make L'Jarius Sneed develop him into a guy who someone overpays, or the teams that buy low on Calvin Ridley and then let another team make a 30-year-old receiver that is okay, one of the highest paid in the leagues. Those are the teams that usually suck. So we'll see what happens with the Tennessee Titans. We'll also see what happens with the Texans. If they trade up, it's going to look really, really weird. Happy March Madness to everyone. Enjoy the hoops. And always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Be sure to subscribe, like, ride along. Talk to you Monday, 10 a.m.
It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah.